All right. Hey, today I want to talk about this concept about healthy aging. And when I first talked about it I was talking about it with a client, and she's like, Kim, what exactly is healthy aging? And I was like, you know what? You are asking a very good question. And I was like, I didn't have the answer for her. So I'm like, you know what? I am going to go on a quest. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What is healthy aging? Because you hear that all the time. And is this like, a buzzword, right? Is this like the latest buzzword that is now going to become in our vocabulary? So when I first went to look at it, so the National Institute of Aging, they refer to healthy aging as being able to manage our health so that we can live as independently as long as possible, so that we can maintain the quality of our life. And I'm 100% in agreement with that, right? So it's like, if you think about it, you want to be able to like not be, dependent that someone needs to come in and take care of you. We've all seen, our older relatives, either our parents, grandparents, neighbors in our community that, need the help. And so you want to be able to, I always say this to people when we're doing squats and everyone's complaining about squats. And I'm like, if you're lucky, you're going to be squatting for the rest of your natural born life. Think about it. We are going to sit. That's a squat. Get off the damn toilet. That's a squat, right? So that's what we really want to talk about. We want to talk about how do we take our overall and live a healthy life. So if I'm starting with this a definition, let's get into some facts, right? So the average lifespan for a woman is 81 years. Now, I'm, knock on wood here. I'm hoping to go a little bit longer than that. My grandmother is 100 years old, and God willing, in about a month, she will be 101, right? So she has lived a very long life. She's still got her memory. She's still sharp as a tack. So I'm hoping that I got her genes. I got her hands. So I'm hoping that is a link to her brain. But most of the research that we see about older adults, older living adults, I don't want to call it elderly, because like elderly makes me think about like these frail people who you can see through their skin and pretty much see all of their veins. So are all done on women because women live longer. You always see it. Women outlive their spouses. They outlive men. And besides menopause, many of women have very similar health issues, right? Some of us have different menopause issues where some of us go into menopause earlier. Some of us take a longer time in that perimenopause phase of life. But for the most part, we all have basically the same type of health issues. And the main concern for, many of us is like being able to just, be independent, right? Can I walk on my own? That's my big goal. I want to like walk unassisted till the day I die. All right. So let's just break it down with as we age, what the hell happens to us? So first, our brain structure, it starts to change. And that's still a bit of a mystery, because right now there's a ridiculous statistic about how many people in the next 10-ish years are going to have some form of memory issue, be it full-blown Alzheimer's, be it some various form of dementia. But that's what that's where we're heading right now. And that is prematurely aging a lot of people, because you can't take care of yourself if you can't remember. I mean, I know I could barely remember when I go to the kitchen and what I did. I can't imagine having most of my memories gone. So the other thing is, as we age, our heart muscles start to thicken. And part of that they feel is that it's just like any muscle, right? We've used it for a long time. So it's built up to be thicker. Eyesight, right? I remember my eye doctor. I was like, oh, I've worn glasses since the fourth grade. And I remember I told my eye doctor, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like, yeah, I could barely read on my cell phone. And he's like, well, women of a certain age. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, you're over 40 now, Kim. And I was like, but I also have really good health insurance. So I can always find a new doctor. I'm like, let's stop calling me a woman of a certain age. That's like calling me ma'am. Unless you're in the South and you get ma'amed, you're like, do not ma'am me. So the other part is, and this is for what I say to so many of you, and so please hear me. As we age, we lose 3 to 5% of our muscle, right? So as a woman, one of the ways that we are going to live as independently as long as we possibly can and be able to get up out of a seated position, get up off the toilet, not slip and fall in the toilet, is we have to build muscle. And we need to start doing it now. You know, there is a woman trained with Joan. She's, I want to say she's 75, but she didn't start training till she was 70. And she looks fabulous. So don't tell me, oh, it's too late for me. It's not too late until you're dead. So if you are not strength training at least 3 days a week, please, please, please start doing it. If you're like, Kim, I don't know where to start, holla at your girl. I can help you get started. We also see an increase in body fat due to shifting hormones, right? And so I'm going to do a whole deep dive into menopause 101 in the coming weeks. I'm still putting together all of the content because I want to make sure that it's not too like over the top for you. That it's like I break down the concepts so that it's not too like you must have a PhD in level in order to understand it. Our immune system gets less active, right? You know, we've all experienced, we've gone through the last few years with Rona running around, and one of the first things we learned was that it affected older people way more than it did younger people. So this is, you know, we've had, you know, sadly, firsthand experience of, you know, a lot of people who lived in nursing homes being wiped out because their immune system just wasn't up to snuff with to fight that virus. Bone density, you know, and bone density goes hand in hand with muscle, right? You know, a lot of times I tell people when I start strength training, I build strong bones because your muscles pull on your bones. And so the stronger my muscles are, the stronger my bones are. And, you know, especially it is for white women and Asian women, they are the highest folks who will experience osteoporosis. And so I forgot to throw this factoid in there. So I think it'll be a good factoid for you. So women who don't do any strength training can see up to a 22% decline in their muscle mass between the ages of 33 and 70. And so, you know, go to Florida and you see, you know, so many people think that when they see older adults, they see like they're flabby, right? And most people think it's fat. No, it's that their muscle has no muscle tone to it, right? It just, their muscles are just stringy. And so what muscle, if you think about when we build muscle, if you were to put your hands together, like, you know, clasp your hands together. And if I were to like lift my palms and I were to slowly pull apart my hands, right? That is the uncoupling of muscle. When I lift, I strength train and I bring my hands back together, that is the building of muscle, right? So the muscles are, if you think about like if knitting, right? Think about knitting. If you ever saw like a knitted sweater and then you pulled on the wrong string and then it just kind of like unravels in front of you, that is muscle. So if I don't lift, the muscle will slowly waste away over the years. And slowly but surely, what you think is fat is just your muscle has no muscle tone, right? It's just hanging out. Where if I strength train, I can help curb the natural order of things. The other thing that we see happen is that we get that diabetes and insulin resistance. And so this part right here is another one that I'm going to unpack in a different episode. But what we're seeing here is that it could be the introduction of processed foods into our lives, especially, you know, what you didn't see a lot of this in like the 80s and the 90s for people who were in 70s plus. We started seeing a lot of this, especially when people got into their 40s and 50s with the baby boomers, right? Because they were the first generation to truly have processed foods. And now we have at least two generations of people who have grown up on processed foods. It's now, getting more coverage, and more food manufacturers are doing their best to kind of step away from the processing of foods. And, as consumers, we're getting more educated about the, processed foods. But this is one of the big things, one of the reasons why we're seeing this rise in diabetes and insulin resistance. And so a lot of times when people come to me and they're like, Kim, I can't lose this belly fat, I can't lose the weight, a lot of it has to do with blood sugar and insulin resistance, of blood pressure, right? Because of the thickening of our hearts. Also, because sometimes, maybe we weren't always eating in the best way we possibly could, we start to see our blood pressure increase. And so that's how it takes more effort to pump your heart, to pump blood through its system. And then sleep issues, right? Hormones, they're our sleep issue, stress, children. So we're not sleeping that much. And so, I just wanted to give you, there's other things that happen, but I want to give you kind of this big overview that I know that I've personally experienced, from clients telling me this. I've just, from the data that I read, and just overall life. So how do we fight it, right? It's really nice that I can point out the poop in the carpet, because, everyone wants to see the poop in the carpet. It's not. So how do we fight it? As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And the first place is exercise. You ever listen to this podcast? It's called Fit Girl Magic. That I'm into exercise, right? Fit. And so at least 150 minutes a week, with the focus being on strength training. So many people, I know, and I get it. Like when I first started, it was all about the cardio, right? I would go and hop on the Stairmaster. It felt fabulous. And I did it for an hour and I would leave the gym. Or I would go to a step class and there was absolutely no strength training whatsoever. And I would leave and I was like, oh, I worked out. Now we really need to prioritize the strength training. And do I need to go to the gym 2 hours a day? No, absolutely. It says the American College of Sports Medicine says 150 minutes. You can break up that 150 minutes however you want to break up that 150 minutes, however it's going to work best for you, right? So I'm always talking about working your reps. We have to find a schedule that's realistic, that you're excited about, that you can make a plan, and then that's ultimately sustainable. All right. That's what we're looking for. The other piece is adding in movement, right? I've shared this chart with you before where 70% of how we burn calories comes primarily from us moving around, from us fidgeting, right? As I'm talking here, I'm waving my arms. Well, I always wave my arms. I'm a fidgeter. I can't sit still. So I naturally will burn just a little bit more calories than other people who just sit, with their hands crossed. But adding 75 to 10,000 steps, everybody has some type of way to measure their steps. Either you're using an Apple Watch, you're using a Fitbit, you're using your phone. Like everyone now has a way to measure in their steps, and try to see if you can get 7,500 to 10,000 or more steps a day would be absolutely fabulous. And exercise is also good for stress management. It's also good for your overall health, right? We want, like we said, we want to be able to live independently as long as possible so we can help manage the quality of our life. Well, exercise is the number one thing you can do. And then the second thing is nutrition. I've said this before. Jack LaLanne, he is the father of modern fitness. And he has explained that nutrition is queen and exercise is king, right? So if the queen's unhappy, ain't nobody happy. And so the biggest thing is if we focus on getting 80% of our nutrition being healthy, right? None of this like, I'm going to be on point. Like as soon as the client tells me I'm going to be on point, I'm like, you're setting yourself up for failure, sister. And instead of being on point, let's see what we can do for 80%, right? That gives you wiggle room. That allows you to have date nights with your sweetie. That allows you to have cake at your birthday, your kid's birthday, and a glass of champagne on your anniversary, right? It's this all or nothing that has gotten us to this place of always like going hard and then feeling like a failure, going hard, feeling like a failure, finding something else and going on. Stop, uncle. So here's where we're going to focus on with our nutrition, increasing our fiber. One of the best things about fiber is, one, it helps us poop. When I poop, I get rid of toxins in my body, right? And so the more I get rid of toxins in my body, I want you to think of, or think back to this, right? So if I'm burning fat, where does that fat go? It goes out into my bloodstream, right? And then fiber comes around like a street sweeper, right? Comes around like a street sweeper, in any place that doesn't have a home, any toxin that needs to be gone, fiber sweeps it up and then you poop it out. Now, if there is no, I don't have a street sweeper coming through my blood and getting rid of all these toxins, you know what it does? It gets reinserted back into your fat cell. Your fat cell's like, oh, you don't have a home? I'm always open. Come on down, right? And so what we're trying to do is lose the fat, and we just keep like shuttling it back in. It's on that like have you ever taken a shuttle at an airport, and like the airport shuttle literally goes like through all the terminals and back, through all the terminals and back? That's what we're doing if I don't give fat, toxins a exit ramp. And fiber is your exit ramp. And fiber, you can get that through amazing vegetables, right? No one ever said I got fat eating too much broccoli, right? No one ever lost it eating too much broccoli. So we want to eat fibrous vegetables. We also want to look at our processed carbs. And the biggest thing that I see a lot of is that we don't flip over the back of our ingredients. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm having Greek yogurt. Okay, but is that Greek yogurt vanilla, strawberry? Yeah. So you want plain. Add your own freaking berries. One of my favorite things to do is to buy frozen fruit, and then I put it in the I buy a big, I don't know, I think it's a half quart or whatever, the giant thing of Greek yogurt. Buy the giant thing of plain Greek yogurt. Then I put it in a little individual container, and I buy frozen fruit, and I put the frozen fruit in that container, and I throw it in the fridge, and I let it defrost overnight. And so now I have not only the fruit, but I also have, which is fiber. I put some berries in there. So I have some berries, and then I have like the fruit, but then I also have the frozen fruit juice, and I mix that up in my Greek yogurt. And so now I've created my own flavored yogurt without the added sugars and all the other malarkey that they add to the flavored yogurt. So I want to look at also my processed carbs, like what am I eating? Like flip it over. And so a lot of times when people are like, I don't understand what processed means. This is what processed means. Processed food is, think about an apple, right? I pull the apple from the tree. Great. Awesome. That is the closest to nature you're going to get beside eating the seeds. Next step, apple sauce. So I take the apples and I mince the crap out of it, and I got apple sauce. Okay. So it's semi-processed, but it's still, I can identify what it was. Next step, apple juice, right? I take the apples and press the crap out of it. So now there's no fiber, there's no nothing. It's just the juice of the apple. That's processed, right? So there's varying levels of process, but if I'm spending most of my time drinking apple juice and never ever having a whole apple, I'm going to have trouble with the insulin resistance, the blood sugar management. Do you see? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Right. So we really want to look at the number of processed carbs in our system. There's also crackers, right? So a lot of times, I love a good cheese and cracker, but I only have it once a week. Back in the day, I used to eat cheese and crackers before dinner every single night, right? So crackers are processed. So if I, flip over and I read the ingredients on the back of my whatever I'm eating, I want to be able to not need a PhD to know what the heck I'm putting in my body, right? Because like a lot of these foods, many of us think that the Food and Drug Administration is here to protect us. Wrong. So there are a whole multitudes of ingredients that the Food and Drug Administration calls GRAS, generally regarded as safe, where they don't know. They, based on the quantity that Maybe the food manufacturer has tested, they haven't seen any harm, but they don't know, right? Somebody who, I remember when I was taking my very first nutrition class, and the instructor's like, never assume anything. They're like, never assume that your clients are going to be compliant. And so there was a client who was following the Weight Watchers diet, and Weight Watchers gives you points. And she told a story about how one of her first clients took like Pam, the spray stuff, took a can of Pam, and because it was 0 points, and literally like sprayed practically the can into a pot and deep fried something, right? So it's like people can always find a way to get in harm's way, So I want you to think about, like, even though it says generally regarded safe, the food manufacturer is assuming that you're not going to shotgun the whole bag, and sometimes you shotgun the whole bag. I've been there. I have done that. The last piece here is alcohol. Now, here's where I'm going to say, I feel like there's a place for alcohol, but it depends on how much you're drinking, right? If you're drinking every single night and you're wondering, why am I not losing weight? Alcohol is the first place I'm going to go. But if you're telling me that you have a drink on Friday night with your sweetie as a way to like kick off the weekend, rock on with your bad self. But if it's every night, it's your way of decompressing, your way of cooking dinner, there are other alternatives. And I have a whole guide about alcohol that I go a deeper dive into. I have another podcast as well about alcohol that really breaks down, if you feel like alcohol is a little bit too much for you. And so if that's an issue, I have, I'll include yes, I can speak. I'll include the link to that podcast. The second thing here is blood sugar levels. I'm just writing down the alcohol thing. All right, blood sugar levels, right? So I touched on this about insulin resistance and diabetes. A lot of times I want you to, when you go to your doctor and you get your physical, ask them to take a fasting glucose test, right? Fasting glucose and fasting insulin, because those are telltale markers. Are you moving towards insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, right? So that if we start looking at these numbers earlier, we can start to get on top of it. And again, this is another podcast that I'll take a deeper dive into about that. The other place here is stress reduction, right? So many people are like, Kim, but I exercise. If I am in a stressed out state, think about like a house on fire, right? Your house is on fire. Are you going to throw another log on? Are you going to be like, hey, here's some gasoline? No, you're going to be like, oh my God, how do I put out my fire? That's what exercise does to someone who's already in a stress state. So if you're someone who's stressed out, I am not going to be like, you know what, you need to hit the gym, sister. No, I'm going to be like, girlfriend, let's just take a pause, or maybe change what you're doing. Like, you going to take this high intensity boot camp class, high intensity spin class ain't where I'm going to send you. I'm going to be like, you know what, how about a little Tai Chi? How about a little yoga? How about a little something that's going to help, get your nervous system from that high alert place, so we can start to be more regulated, right? So it's going to be, let's start to see if we can add in a little bit more meditation, add in a little bit more breath work, yoga, Tai Chi, slowing things down, so that you can kind of, I don't know about you, but I know when I'm stressed out, I feel so out of my body. I feel so like, right? That I feel like my insides are like a hamster on a wheel. But I also feel that I am now more cognizant of when I feel like that's like a sign, like, you know what, Kim, just get out and go for a walk, right? I just get out and I put put a podcast in my ear and I just go for a walk and I start to just chill my stuff out. So start to think about, like, when you feel stressed out, what are some non-hit spin class, boot camp things you can do that help you just kind of like get back in your body? Keep up with your annual doctor's appointment. I know I missed like 2 years worth of doctor's appointments, and it was not pretty. I had a major issue that, may have been caught sooner. So I don't want you to fall into that. So it's like, making sure if you're over 50, you're getting a colonoscopy. I actually did the Cologuard. It was kind of weird. You poop in a box and ship it away, but I did that. The next time my doctor will actually do a traditional colonoscopy. Mammograms, right? I caught a lump when I was 28 years old. And since then I go I went every 6 months for almost 5 years. And now I'm on a yearly mammogram schedule. Pap smears, right? I think they changed it from every year to every 3 years, but I think over a certain age you can get them every year, or your doctor might be able to get them for you every year. But have a conversation with them. But yeah, pap smears catch certain types of cancers that might be going on in your cervix. Get your thyroid levels checked. I can't stress this enough. And when you are getting your thyroid levels checked, don't let them just take TSH, right? That's like your main thyroid. You want to get free testosterone. You want to see your T3 levels, your T4 levels, because TSH is like your main level oxygen. And so that's like going to get your car checked, and they just check your gas, right? You're like, what about my oil? But what about my engine? Like, like if I get multiple things in my thyroid, I can start to see where things are starting to break out. Is it, TS just tells me, yes, you're making thyroid, but is it converting, right? Like, where is it being manufactured? So ask for all of the full thyroid panel. And I'm going to be honest with you, you may have to pay out of pocket for that, but I'm like, if you feel like you're banging your head up against the wall, and if you can afford it, pay out of pocket for it. And then have them, check for your memory dementia, because like I said, there's a ridiculous amount of people who are going to be facing memory issues in the coming years. And right now, maybe there's a cure around the corner, maybe there's a drug, I don't know. But if we can start to do what we can now to keep us out of that category, keep on and work on that memory and that brain health. Balance training. If you have ever taken a class of mine, if you're in my Fit Girl Magic Society, I always have a exercise that is based on balance or stability, because as we age, we lose this. And so, my parents live in an active adult community, and I don't know how many times my mom has told me that because they're the young bucks on the block, that my parents have gone over to help their older neighbor who's fallen and they can't get up, right? And so my worst fear is, I don't know if you remember seeing the Sex in the City with Miranda was training for the marathon, and then she got a crick in her neck, and then she called Carrie to help her because she couldn't get out of the shower, and Carrie couldn't come, so she sent Aiden. And so like Aiden comes over and she's like, I'm naked in the shower. That is my worst nightmare, to be like 80 years old, naked in the shower, and some freaking stranger has to come save me from myself. So balance training and strength training to support your bones are like please. I think I've beaten that horse. It's dead. It's got flies circling around it. And also get your vitamin D level checked. It's interesting. Like, my doctor's been checking vitamin D for years. And a client of mine recently was like, oh, my doctor just checked my vitamin D and it's short. And I was like, she just checked it now? Like, really? Like, vitamin D has become a big thing because, I don't know about you, but when in my youth, there was no talk about wearing a hat when you went outside or putting on sunscreen, right? Like, when I was in high school, people were putting on freaking baby oil and, convinced that a burn would turn into a tan, right? So if you haven't got your vitamin D levels checked, please check that out. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Like, how do you see yourself, how do you see yourself aging, right? What's your goal for aging, and how would you define healthy aging? And if there any of these tips really resonated with you, holla at your girl. Let me know how this has impacted you. All right. Have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you next week.